we ask you to remain standing for the national anthem of Trinidad and Tobago. At this time, I invite the Treasurer of the Council, Mr. Maxwell Roberts, to do the prayer for us.
Good evening all. Please assume a point of reverence. Kind and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you. We ask you for your blessings on this beautiful Sunday evening. We ask that you give us that spirit of unity, that spirit of strength. We ask that you guide those that are on their way, bring them here safely, O God. As we come before you to treat with the business of the people, we ask for your continued blessings, your continued mercies. Your mercies are new every day, O God. We thank you for life. We thank you for strength. And we thank you for this opportunity to come before you as a people, as a united people, forged together through your strength, through your love. We ask this in your mighty name we pray. Amen.
PNM family, let me once again welcome you to the best village in Tobago, my hometown, the village of Mason Hall. We produce some of the best, and we can't argue that point. We produce some of the best, and we continue to do so. Just a few housekeeping and greetings and salutations before we get into what is going to be a power-packed meeting this evening. Let me take this opportunity to recognize both members of Parliament, Member for Parliament West and East. Put your hands together. Member of Parliament for West, Ayana Shamfa-Kojo, my apologies, Shamfa-Kojo Lewis. And our MP for Tobago East, the lady, Madam Ayana Webster-Roy. Put your hands together. We also recognize our minority leader, Mr. Kelvon Morris. One is enough. And we know they are coming, so in absentia, we want to recognize our political leader of the PNM Tobago Council, Mr. Ansel Dennis. And we know that he is tuning in. The Prime Minister, Member of Parliament for Digo Martin West, the Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. I also want to recognize our minority councillor who is in the audience this evening, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit, all executive members of the Tobago Council. Also recognize our Assistant General Secretary of the National Party, Ms. Patricia Alexis. Put your hands together. All our former assemblymen and secretaries that are here, we want to thank you for gracing us. And then we see three of them up in front and center, and we have others mixed in with the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. You know, they think that we are dead. They think that we are no more. They think that we will never return. But we got news for them in Tobago. The PNM is standing strong. The PNM will remain standing strong. Yes, we may be down, brothers and sisters. But when they feel that we're down, we're not out. You see, brothers and sisters, from 1956 to 2023, we are the People's National Movement. From Dr. Williams to George Chambers to Patrick Manning to Keith Rowley, we are the People's National Movement. And in Tobago, from Orville, London, to who? From Orville, London, to Kelvin Charles, to who? We are the PNM. Some of them want to disrespect our leaders. But listen, when you have nothing to say, and you have no track record of anything, you are going to attack people. You ever see the pelt a barren tree? Never pelt a barren tree. So let them continue to pelt. We make no apology for who we are. We are the PNM, and we will continue to be the PNM. We will continue to stand strong. We will continue to rebuild. As I said, a friend of mine told me we were not beaten December 2021. What we had was a steep learning curve. It is for us, the people of this great party, to learn from our mistakes and to build on the legacy that is the People's National Movement. We want to get right into this evening's meeting and to open the baton. Brothers and sisters, we have a powerful lineup. I'm sure that you know that we are going to have, I can't even find the adjective for it, but we are going to have a beautiful, mind-blowing evening in Mason Hall. But to open the baton, the man who continues to fight tirelessly for the people of Tobago, I invite you to stand to your feet. Mr. DJ, give us something. We want to welcome to the stage at this time our Prime Minister and political leader, Member of Parliament for Digo Martin West, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, and with him our political leader of the Council, Mr. Ansel Dennis. And as I was saying, the man who continues to lead the battle for us in the Tobago House of Assembly, they're trying all how to beat up Brother Morris. But the boy young, the boy vibrant, and the boy fit as a fiddle. And we want to stand with the mantra this evening that says, one is enough. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as we welcome to the stage at this time the Assemblyman for Darrell Spring Wim and the minority leader of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Kelvin Morris.
PNM family, good evening. How you feeling? PNM family, how you feeling in Mason Hall this evening? Permit me to recognize in our presence our Honorable Prime Minister and political leader of the People's National Movement, the Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Also permit me to recognize our political leader, Tobago Council, Mr. Ansel Dennis, Chairman of the Council, Brother Larry Paul, and other members of the Council, our standard bearers, Member of Parliament for Tobago East, Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, and Member of Parliament for Tobago West, the Honorable Mrs. Shamfa Kujo Lewis. Permit me to also recognize our Master of Ceremony Senator Lawrence Hislop, my partner, my soldier, side wing, the Honorable Councillor Petal Daniel Benoit. And of course, permit me to recognize with us as well, very special guest, our Assistant General Secretary and also Deputy Mayor of San Fernando, Mrs. Patricia Alexis. Let me also recognize our former Assembly members, councillors, secretaries, members who would have served on the executive of the People's National Movement Tobago Council, PNM members, PNM well-wishers, PNM family, here in Mason Hall, PNM family logged on listening. Good evening. So, brothers and sisters, it's always a pleasure to stand up before you and to be part of a young, vibrant, part of the leadership that is very young and vibrant. When you look behind me, you have young, vibrant, intelligent, progressive, Honorable Shamfa Kujo, you have Honorable Ayana Webster-Roy, you have leading the Tobago Council, our young, vibrant political leader, Ansel Dennis, and of course you have Senator Hislop, and then you have Councillor Benoit. And this tells all of Tobago that the future of Tobago with the PNM is bright, and it is one that we all can be proud of. Brothers and sisters, this evening, I would like to continue a conversation that we began in the Assembly Legislature quite recently. And that conversation was where we recognized when you walk the length and breadth of Tobago, persons are saying to us that all is definitely not well. When you drive across the length and breadth of Tobago, you are recognizing that the Tobago we are accustomed to, the smooth roads, well paved, the kind of development where you are seeing community centers being built and refurbished, playgrounds well maintained, that is no more as well. That has been replaced by abandoned projects. You drive from Charlottesville, abandoned community center, come down to Goodwood, and that place that was once the pride of the East, where we would play cricket and play football, it is overrun by grass. Not even the sheep and the cows could even find their way inside there. Abandoned, and then you come down to Bacolet, abandoned indoor facility. Imagine over 21 years, people of Tobago have been waiting, and when we was on the cusp of getting that indoor facility, abandoned by this hapless, clueless TPP, PDP, IDP, I don't know, independent party. We really don't know. And brothers and sisters, so we went to the house to wake them up, because in my mind they are asleep. And the mantra "let we fix this" has turned into, basically, it's about let's abandon this. And so we went to wake them up. And in calling those persons to finally take responsibility for the mandate given to them by the majority of Tobagonians, those jokers got together, amended the motion, and then decided in that space that they were doing so well. So all the persons who are unemployed and they are asking for employment, they are saying no, they have fixed that already. All the roads that are left with big potholes that we have to divert from on a daily basis, they are saying no, we have fixed that already. All the buildings and the projects that have been abandoned, they are saying no, we have fixed that already, and there's nothing to fix in Tobago. So they got together. Imagine one secretary was so bold-faced to tell us that he spent $2 million on a project to alleviate flooding in Canaan, Bonaccord. And because now he believes that it takes about a few minutes shorter for the water to run off, that all of a sudden he has fixed it. And just recently, what is even more vexing, just recently, the same place that he was telling us is fixed, cars had to be turned back just a couple days ago because it was impassable. So imagine spending $2 million saying that you have fixed it, and to date, the problem remains. And this is what passes for governance in Tobago at this time. But more than that, I've worked with a couple questions that we have filed. And the reason I've worked with those questions is to demonstrate quickly how arrogant this administration is, how untrustworthy this administration is. Because what you would see within those questions is a clear inability to respond and respond truthfully. And the first question, because I also want to give you their records in responding to questions. So we have filed 56 oral questions. And as much as they have answered about 46 of those questions, there are 8 of those questions remain unanswered, and 2 of those questions were partially answered. And of the 10 questions unanswered, 5 of them belong to one man. And I would read one of the questions that we filed for oral response. And you know what is so disappointing about that? Is that when we initially filed that question sometime in April, on the 27th of April at the 17th sitting, the gentleman pretended, we asked him about the quarry at Studley Park. And I'm speaking about the Secretary of Infrastructure. And he pretended that he didn't know that the THA owns a quarry at Studley Park. So he said to me and he gave the commitment that the official recruitment process has been, let me just read. Yes, so he gave me the commitment that this quarry, after he went around the merry-go-round, telling us all about when the quarry was established and all that, he said, I would ask that if the member wants to ask about the board of directors of the Studley Park Enterprise Limited, that being a separate altogether question, that he is welcome to submit that question at the next sitting or at any other sitting he chooses, and he will be pleased to answer me. So I did take heed, and I did ask about the board of directors at the Studley Park Enterprise Limited. You know, after we went on a break, so he came June, he didn't answer. Went on a break July, August. Returned to the Assembly Legislature in September. And after giving that commitment, you know that gentleman turned around and asked for a deferral? And you would think that that was bad. Come to the sitting in October, and this gentleman again comes to the Assembly Legislature after being warned by the presiding officer that he will present the answer in October. He comes again without any care for the people of Tobago, and he asks for a deferral again. And I am saying to myself, how could you not know who are the members of the board to which you are responsible? If anything shows a clear dereliction of duty and tells me that you are unfit for office, unfit for the position, is that because how could you not know who are the persons operating one of the most important agencies in Tobago, which is the Studley Park Enterprise Limited? And the reason why they don't want to tell us is because they are ashamed of the person that they have put there. Because we know who the person is, and the person we know is famous for planting pumpkins and cucumber. And because they know that person cannot stand scrutiny, because they know that person is unqualified, he's ashamed to tell you, the people of Tobago, that answer. But very quickly, I will move on. We also asked the Chief Secretary a simple question. Do you all practice recusals in the interest of transparency? And he said yes. We do practice recusals. As a matter of fact, we have many persons and many issues where we had to have recusals. So I then asked him, can you share with us some examples? He said he would have to put it in writing. As I stand here tonight, we have asked and we have asked and we have asked. Up to now, we can't see one letter, one word, one name of any member who would have recused themselves on any issue. So after committing and telling us, yes, they do recuse, he is now unable to tell us who are the persons and what are the issues. And you might find that, why am I saying this? Why am I fighting up with this? But there's something called conflict of interest. And in a situation where every day we are seeing persons getting contracts, you are not seeing anything being advertised, you are not seeing any kind, they're not even telling you who are the contractors, they're hiding the names. Imagine a project going on at Color Hall. Nobody knows the contractors, nobody knows who are the persons, yet projects are going up. You are seeing a situation where you have members of the assembly putting even their own brothers on boards that they are in charge of. They are giving their wives contracts, their cousins contracts. And the chief secretary in that kind of environment is unable to tell us who are the persons, when do they recuse, and what are the issues are they recusing from. And we have another situation just recently again. We asked the Secretary of Tourism about the situation with the CEO for TITAL, and that is the Tobago Tourism Agency. And the Secretary initially told us that they took the board, they had a process, they identified a candidate, the board took, accepted the recommendation of that process, sent a recommendation to the Executive Council, and she said that they are now moving on to make an offer to the CEO. You know that very secretary, after ducking and weaving multiple times, would send a response to tell us that the Executive Council rejected the recommendation of the board. And you have to ask yourself which Tasha Boris to believe, because in one breath she told us that the Executive Council accepted and they were making an offer, and in the next breath she is now telling us that the Executive Council rejected. Are they having separate Executive Council meetings? Do we have multiple personality? Because I don't understand how you could give two different answers on the same subject matter. And this is the kind of lack of transparency, mistrust. This is the kind of people we are dealing with. You just can't believe them. Imagine, very quickly before I close, I want to share with you that we asked a question on this office of the Deputy Chief Secretary, because I am positive there's no Tobagonian who understands what that office does. In fact, I've never even seen as much as a press release from that office. That office that can't even find one investor to come into the island. That office that can't even find one new airline. In fact, if you look at Tobago's number, compare, in 2019 when we were there, total stayover arrivals by month, and I'm just going to give it to June, we had over 12,000 people coming to Ireland, international tourists. You know what they are producing right now? A measly 7,690, 4,189 less tourists coming to Ireland, and they are telling you they are fixing this. So brothers and sisters, we looked, when they responded on the office of the Deputy Chief Secretary, you are seeing where, in one breath, they have a senior technical advisor. Then you have a technical advisor. Then you have something called office support coordinator. And when you look at the pay that these persons are paying, when they said that they don't have no money, they are paying a technical advisor, senior technical advisor, $33,000 to do what? They're paying a technical advisor In August, they paid the original payment for a technical advisor was $25,200. By the time the year turned around, they had a new technical advisor. And the thing about it, that new technical advisor is receiving a salary of over $30,000. So the pay went up by $5,000. And here is what is most interesting. The technical advisor who was paid $25,000 had a PhD. The technical advisor who is now being paid $30,000 does not have any. So I want to know what special skill could account for this increase in salary. And while we are asking the questions, they are there lying through their teeth. Imagine the DCS, the Deputy Chief Secretary, is telling us we should be happy because usually they just pay more for those positions. But what the PNM was getting more done, paying less. And these are the same people coming to you telling you that they only have $6 million to treat with your development. When you see them, tell them, I say, they lie. Because the PNM was doing more with less. And when you look at coming out of that exercise, what would usually happen in an exercise like that is that you go into it, you look at your resources, and then you have that kind of systemic, you have that kind of analysis, and you determine your priorities, and you reprioritize what you have to the benefit of all Tobago. But what do you have instead? Excuses, complaints, fight, and then the Chief Secretary basically admitting that he has failed and we would have to suck salt for the next year. So Tobago, I simply want to tell you tonight that your only hope is the people's national movement. And as I close, I simply want to encourage us to continue to pay attention to the issues, continue to give support. And when we give that support, and when we pay attention to those issues, and when we rally together as one, we'll all come back in about 24 months or so, somewhere in Mason Hall, some may be in Wim, some may be in Charlottesville. But when victory is had, we'll all sing and shout, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we have prevailed. I thank you.
Well, I know we could do better than that. I know we could do better than that. It will be our responsibility as the People's National Movement to hold this mumbling, bumbling, fumbling, crumbling administration. So we'll hold them to board. They could continue to run, but they cannot hide. I want to again compliment and congratulate our minority leader for the work that he has been doing. Before we move on to the other speaker, you know what is interesting, brothers and sisters, that this administration came into office on a PDP ticket. They became independents. They launched a party called TPP, and up to now, we can't find a registered party on the EBC website that says TPP. And so they continue to deceive Tobagonians. They came in on a deception and they continue to govern deceptive. We will continue to call them out on their actions, brothers and sisters. Coming to the podium next, this lady needs no real introduction. A firebrand, a powerhouse, energetic, full of life, and she has now added an extra bullet in her arsenal. She is now called Mrs. Kojo Lewis. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as we welcome to the podium the Member of Parliament for Tobago West and Minister of Sport and Community Development.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A hearty good evening is extended to each and every one of you. It's a real pleasure to see you out in your numbers. I want to acknowledge, recognize, and salute the presence of our dear political leader, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, son of the soil, and a dear Mason Hawlian. I want to recognize our Tobago political leader, Mr. Ansel Dennis. I want to recognize Mr. Calvin Morris. I wanted to say one is enough. Thank you for your hard work and your commitment. I want to salute also my sister in service, Mrs. Ayana Webster Roy. All the other party members of the executive, brothers and sisters of the PNM, those who are tuned in, listening through social media, TTT, I-95, the People's National Movement is on the move again. I'm always delighted to see you come out in your numbers, even on a Sunday evening. It's a beautiful evening indeed. The PNM is on the move. Down but not out, minding our business and slowly making progress. Your presence this evening, brothers and sisters, represent commitment, perseverance, dedication, sacrifice, consciousness, courage, self-awareness, and most importantly, hope. They're still right-thinking Tobagonians in Tobago. People who are not afraid to identify wrong as wrong and right as right. And patriots who are committed to standing tall on honesty and integrity, doing the hard work to restoring order, making sure that we have a sense of pride and purpose, and developing decency towards the upliftment of Tobagonians, the resuscitation of the Tobago economy, and the preservation of all that is good in Tobago as it relates to our values and our dignity. We are the People's National Movement. We know who we are, where we stand, and what we represent. In and out of government, we remain steadfast in our commitment to fulfilling our mandate, to maximizing the full potential of all our resources in the nation, to strengthening the economy, improving the standard of life for all Trinbagonians, and extending to our citizens unbridled access to an avalanche of opportunities, building a brighter future for all the children, making a country prosperous and resilient. All of that is we, a rally for all, whether you like us or not, whether you support us or not. We are the PNM, the same PNM of Dr. the Honorable Eric Williams, the same PNM of the hardworking and compassionate George Chambers, the same PNM of the visionary Patrick Manning, and the same PNM of the hard-working man of service and proper representation, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. It is we, the PNM, who brought our country out of the hands of the colonizers to the heights of independence. And it's important that we repeat these things, because something else is being told to our children, and something else is being told to you to cause you to question yourselves. And we have to remember who we are and from whence we came and what we represent. We are the PNM who fought to become a democratic republic and establish full control of our own parliament. We developed a sturdy foundation and created all the national institutions, a template for the rest of the Caribbean region. We are the PNM who engineered projects and programs to improve the quality of life for all people of every creed and race and political affiliation. Strong foundation we stand on. We are the PNM. Free schooling from early childhood to primary, secondary, tertiary education, free transportation for students and seniors, free textbooks, free school feeding program. We are the PNM. Complementary quality primary health care system, extensive social support through public assistance, disability grant, pension, home construction and refurbishment grants. All that is we, People's National Movement. We took the bold step to introduce industrialization to the country, a mighty manufacturing sector. We facilitated the development of our local financial institution, and the list goes on. Public utilities companies, we subsidized and supported agriculture from decade to decade, provided incentives for the private sector to boost development in our country. 67 years long, 67 years strong, solid as a rock, standing on a firm foundation. That is our story. That is our legacy, and no amount of bad talking, bad mind, and spin doctrine can take that from us. At any time of history, you choose any period and you will see the PNM has always stood and still stands for progress, productivity, and opportunities for each and everybody, whether you vote or not. Because there are some of them who say, I don't mix up in politics, it's not supported by my faith. But they are the first ones accessing self-help and social assistance, and they're the first ones to open the gate. That is we. We are the PNM. The least we could tell them is we are not the same, and the records would show, both in Trinidad and Tobago, that there is no other party that has contributed so significantly and consistently to building, nourishing, and nurturing the people of our country, both in Trinidad and in Tobago. Look around. I could list what was developed and delivered to Tobago by the People's National Movement. As long as they try to force and foist Kamala and the UNC on you, ask them to list what the UNC had done for Tobago. I remember them promising us an integrated campus or University of Tobago. Where is that? That never happened. What we could remember is them cutting off Tobago from all the grants like self-help, and we had to wait until the People's National Movement regained power in 2015 to see those grants offered to Tobago. Once again, it is under this Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, the one who they're trying to rally the people to hate, who has delivered the most to Tobago as it relates to Prime Minister. From administration to administration. This is our second term, and in his short time as Prime Minister, we got the 2 spanking new fast ferries, airport expansion project, the long-awaited and promised Hillsborough Dam project finally delivered within budget and within time, booster station improving water capacity and sustainability throughout Tobago East and Tobago West. My dear friend, my sister in service, Ayana, would speak to all that has taken place in Roxborough, from the administrative building to the fire station to the police station. I would stay on the west, the Southwest Wastewater Treatment Project, the wells that were just delivered in Mary's Hill, the Signal Hill Pipeline project that was just completed, Cove Electricity Expansion, the NGC Gas Pipeline Project. We lit Pigot Trace and Big Stick Gully in Bethel. We gave you the agricultural access roads for Tobago, agricultural grants for Tobago farmers, and they also get grants from the Division of Agriculture in Tobago. NEDCO grants for entrepreneurs here in Tobago, and they also get grants from BDU here in Tobago. Brothers and sisters, it's all about investing in Tobago. It's all a part of a larger national development agenda. It's about changing lives of Tobagonians for the better, empowering people, giving you choices and options, expanding opportunities for personal development and professional growth, promoting local and foreign direct investment. It's about Tobagonian dignity. It's about Tobagonian pride. So much as they try to rewrite history and perplex the intellect of our youth with their lies, the records will show, and those who care to know will make it their business to know. Those who care to read, those who care to ask questions, those who care to do their own research, those who care to think, to have a mind of their own, they would discover, and soon they would grow. But don't expect it to happen by chance, brothers and sisters, because there is an organized, calculated and concerted campaign to keep you uninformed, to keep you angry, to keep you in fight mode, to make you feel like you have nothing in Tobago, that there is nothing to protect, nothing to look forward to, nothing to defend, to make you feel like you have no part to play in your own progress, and that somebody else, somewhere in Trinidad or elsewhere, is responsible for stunting your growth. It's a sad, sad state of affairs indeed, all geared towards giving Fali a free pass to do as they please, giving our resources to their UNC friends, harboring hate for the Prime Minister and the PNM, trying to win the favor of Kamala. When you speak up, when we speak up, all of a sudden Tobagonians tired of hearing about politics, and they're fed up of Tobagonians fighting each other. But when Fali and friends are on a rampage, they are fully engaged and entertained. So everybody, must waste and weigh the PNM, and the PNM must keep quiet and take it in the name of peace? How fair is that? How does that build country? How does that improve Tobago? Tobagonians, wake up. PNMites, stand up. If we truly care for Tobago, we have to do our work, just like we did when we walked the length and breadth of Tobago in the 1990s, that led us to developing the Tobago Council in 1998 for the benefit and the progress of Tobagonians. We have to get down to doing our homework. We have to get out there and pull a brother, pull a sister, pull a tanty, pull a co-worker, pull a nenen, and do the work. We have to educate, we have to connect, we have to lift, we have to liberate our people, we have to rescue, we have to resuscitate what little is left of Tobago. But to sit, to watch, or to join them in playing dumb is just as bad as playing dead. Our leaders are taking advantage of us as a people, and we depend on them for leadership, brothers and sisters. Our leaders are taking us down a slippery slope, brothers and sisters. We cannot sit down and watch that and just allow it to slide by. Tobagonian children are being taught to be disrespectful. Tobagonians are being trained to harbor hate, to promote evil, to promote hypocrisy, to sell their dignity, to demonize those who are actually doing good, and to play blind, dumb, and deaf to their own detriment, and eventually, ultimately, to their own demise. Trevor hire a plane, nobody sees, nobody knows, nobody cares. So do we what you want? Violate us, disrespect us as Tobagonians, as long as that disrespect and that violation is not coming from the PNM. As Tobagonians, how could that be good for Tobago? How could that be good for yourself? What are you teaching your children? What kind of values are you giving to your family and to your community? I want to know, where are the independents? The ones who used to blog on social media about accountability and transparency, where are the mouthpieces for civil society? Who's gonna air the issues on spot on? Everybody busy, everybody sleeping, some eating their food, their mouth so full they can't talk, and some so ashamed they can't find their mouth. Under their stewardship, we're going down a slippery slope of no return. They made their deals with the devil, and Tobagonians must pay. We can't sit down and watch that. They're suffering Tobagonian contractors, not giving them work, and when they give them work, it's the smallest projects of all. Starving them for pay, not paying them on time, and in some cases, not paying them at all. Lying to us, telling us that they didn't get the monies from central government. I want to tell you that the Tobago House of Assembly received their full allocation last year of up to about $2.5 billion. What did they do with that money? Which contractors were paid? How many Tobagonians received grants for their businesses? How many Tobagonian students got support to go to university? Which qualified, hard-working Tobagonians were sent home? And which ones with no qualifications were paid $15,000, $25,000, and $30,000 a month to blog and do the TPP's dirty work? When they go from village to village playing face-to-face to account to the people, these are the questions that we must make them answer. Brothers and sisters, they're campaigning about war. We don't want no war with them. We are a love party, and we remain focused and committed and resolute to our commitment to continue to build and develop Tobago. We are not looking for war with anybody. Tobagonians are smarter than this TPP think they are. We see right through them. The writing is on the wall, and we will not make the same mistake again. People are feeling the pain and seeing the injustice under their noses, but they are afraid to speak because they are petty. This TPP is petty and wicked, and at the end of the day, nobody wants to lose their work. The writing is on the wall. Tobagonians know that this is not it. And I trust that when the time is right, they will do what they must. On the other hand, we remain focused. We are doing our work. From ministry to ministry, we continue to work with our partners in Tobago, delivering sports camps, grants to the sporting bodies, the community bodies, delivering Empower TT in Tobago, youth internship programs, the registry for companies and so on, self-help and home improvement grant. We are building a nation. So this evening I stand before you with a profound sense of pride as I fellowship with good company of right-thinking people and like-minded patriots, those who don't cower and those who will never give up. I'm comforted to know that all is not lost in Tobago, and as gloomy and dismal as it may seem, and as fed up and frustrated as you may be strong in your conviction that we have been here before and we will overcome again. This is my fight. This is your fight. Playing meek and mild would not help us, and our generations will resent us for not doing our part. When you know better, brothers and sisters, it's on you to do better. When the enemy comes in like a flood, the good word calls on us to raise up a standard, and raise up a standard we must. We are far from perfect, but certainly the most productive and progressive. If Tobago ever needed standard bearers to take their positions, that time is now. The PNM remains that strong tower. The PNM remains a bastion of hope and a fortress in this fight to rescue and rebuild Tobago. Brothers and sisters, this is a clarion call for you, every single one of you, to get up, shake it off, whatever it is that's bothering you or have you worried, get out there and do the work. Nobody is going to save us. We have to save ourselves. And when we go from house to house and we do the work and we get everybody on board, victory is won, and we have delivered to all the people of Tobago. We would come back here or huddle in some corner of Scarborough and we would sing, "Great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM," and we shall prevail. I thank you.
Sober, sobering, but yet a direct instruction to all of us. Our minister, our member of parliament for Tobago West, Ms. Shamfa Kojo Lewis. Put your hands together again. At a PNM meeting, we don't shout and disrespect anybody. We just deliver the facts quietly, confidently, and directly. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, you know, we have the privilege in Tobago to be represented by two women of class, and two women that stand out and stand up. They could say what they want about our MPs, but when our MPs walk the street, they could walk with their heads held high. Whether it is in Charlottesville or in Canaan, they could walk with their heads held high. Ladies and gentlemen, this lady, my member of parliament, is a woman who is quiet yet confident, a woman who does her work with grace and integrity, a lady, but when you trouble her, she will fire back. When you trouble her, she will fire back like a true Roxborough girl. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Welcome to the podium at this time, the Member of Parliament for Tobago East and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Ayanna Webster Roy.
Sleeping time. Sleeping time.
Good evening, Mason Hall. Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening to my beautiful constituents. Let me recognize the head table, my Prime Minister, our political leader, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, leading the charge in Tobago, Mr. Ansel Dennis, our political leader for the Tobago Council, my sister in service, a warrior I want to go into any battle with, the Member of Parliament for Tobago West, the Honorable Mrs. Shamfa Kojo Lewis, put some respect on her name, and the minority leader leading the charge in the assembly, strong enough to take on a team by himself with the able support of our councillor, Mr. Kelvin Morris. I want to recognize all the executive members of our party, as well as those who have served in the assembly in the past, and those who would most likely come back and serve in the future. I want to recognize all of you people who have given yeoman service to the People's National Movement and Tobago. Before I go into my presentation, just allow me a little time to address a burning issue. You see, I am from Tobago East. I went to Bishop's High School. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter. And one of the things my school, my constituency, and my bringing would have taught me is that you have to give good instruction when good instruction is required. So over the past few months and over the past few days, I have listened on in astonishment to our Honorable Chief Secretary address former Honorable Chief Secretaries, address our Honorable Prime Minister in a disrespectful manner. So allow me just a few moments to talk to the young man that I was once his prefect, to talk to the young man that I was once his senior in school, to talk to my young constituent, and to talk to my pumpkin vine cousin. Just a few moments, brothers and sisters of Tobago. In preparing for today, I came across a very profound saying, and it says this: an unconscionable politician will promise the masses to build a river, to build a bridge where no river runs. Again, in my research and my preparation for today, I came across another saying, and it says, if you fill your mouth with razor, then you will obviously spit blood. So to my Honorable Chief Secretary, it's now same day bushfall in water, it is rotten. The words you say today, the attitudes you display today, will come back to haunt you tomorrow. Because if it's one thing I know for a fact, it's that Tobago East people, Tobago people, Trinidad and Tobago people, we respect and honor our elders. So check yourself. Dig deep inside and reflect on the motto at Bishop's High School. Dig deep inside and reflect on what we learn in country. Country people is decent people. Dig deep inside and reflect on all the teachings of our ancestors, because trust me, you're heading down a very slippery slope. I've given you the warning. I've given you the caution. Now let me get on to our business. I am proud to be the standard bearer for the People's National Movement in Tobago East. I am proud to be a member of the team headed by Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. I am proud to sit in the parliament next to a powerful woman as Shamfa Kadro. But most importantly, I am proud to be a woman in Trinidad and Tobago in a time like this. And I will tell you why. I just came back from a conference in Guyana. And when we listen to stories shared around the Caribbean, around our neighbors, around different territories, as a woman in Trinidad and Tobago, I fully respected and accepted once again that I am blessed. Blessed because of the policies established by the People's National Movement from 1956 to policies of today. It is the People's National Movement that would have allowed women to thrive in this country. It is the People's National Movement through its philosophies, its policies, that would have set the stage that today that we can boast that we have the leader of the house, a woman. We have the Speaker of the House, a woman. We have for the first time a female substantive commissioner of police. And if we want to go further, because of PNM policies, we were able to say we had a first female prime minister. Because of PNM policies, we can say in Tobago, the presiding officer is a woman. So if any party has ever cared for women, it is the People's National Movement. If any party in this country would have cared for women and girls, it is the People's National Movement. The People's National Movement through investment by ensuring that when we are in times of difficulty in our homes and we need to flee, we made that investment by establishing the first state-run domestic violence shelter. It is the People's National Movement that saw it fit in establishing policies, encourage ministries and agencies and departments to not only cater to the physical health and well-being of staff, but encourage ministries and agencies and departments to provide after-school support services for children of staff. And because of that policy, embraced by the People's National Movement, at Tobago, at CAS, we had our daycare facility for our staff, ensuring our women were able to come to work and be productive without having to worry too much about the safety and well-being of the children. It is the People's National Movement, through its policies and program, ensure that we establish a national child policy, the first of its kind in the Caribbean. It is the People's National Movement that took a vision of establishing a national children's registry and made it a reality, the first in the Caribbean. It is because the People's National Movement understands and values the importance of family, women, and children. This PNM, the same PNM of Dr. Eric Williams, the same PNM of Mr. George Chambers, and the same PNM of our boy, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. It is the People's National Movement through its policies and its program ensure that we took the opportunity when we were invited to become a part of the Women, Peace and Security Focal Point Network. And earlier this year, I traveled to Washington with my colleague, Honorable Minister Fitzgerald Hines, with a view of Trinidad and Tobago establishing its first Women, Peace and Security Action Plan, fully supported by your Honorable Prime Minister, recognizing the importance and the value of women in bringing about social change, recognizing the role that we as women can play in addressing crime and violence, the People's National Movement. It is the People's National Movement through its policies and program that is caring for our most vulnerable in our communities and in our society. It is the PNM under hardship that decide that even though times may be tough, that we would find the resources to ensure that children in households that are facing difficult circumstances would get a $1,000 book or school supply grant, a grant. Things hard, but this PNM made that decision to make that investment in our young people. But beyond that, it is this PNM that decided that we must continue the school feeding program. We must continue providing free transportation for children in school uniform, because we recognize that education is a vehicle out of poverty. The People's National Movement has always invested in our children and our young people. It is the People's National Movement under this Prime Minister that embraced the opportunity to go to Guyana, explore what is happening in terms of their shared house programs, and encouraging our Minister of Youth Development and National Service to bring that in so our young people would have the opportunity through agriculture to build generational wealth. And when I went to Guyana, I had the opportunity to visit one of those shade houses run by women in Guyana, and to see the potential that it has to transform not only the life of a woman, because once a woman is empowered, a family, a community, and a society has the ability to advance the People's National Movement. It is the PNM under Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, under Mr. Orville London, under the leadership of then Chief Secretary Mr. Ansel Dennis, that ensured that Tobago East was able to blossom and flourish. I am proud to be a Tobago East girl that could now go and get my health assessment done at a hospital in Roxborough, built under the PNM. I remember in 2015 when I walked Hermitage, a young woman said to me, if you could do one thing, try and make sure no other woman in country and baby on the road. Sister, we fixed that. We built the hospital. It is the People's National Movement that decided that it was going to improve water security, not only in Tobago, but throughout the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And under my colleague, the Honorable Marvin Gonsalves, we have been improving water supply in various communities and constituencies. I couldn't make the opening ceremony for the booster station in Hope, but my colleague said to me, he said, when I understood the power of my work was when a lady hugged me and she squeezed me and tears came out of her eyes and she said, for the first time, I'll be able to wash my clothes with peace without having to worry if water coming or not. That is the power of the PNM, putting infrastructure in place to change lives. It is the PNM that ensured that Frenchfield had a booster station so that more persons living in Frenchfield could have reliable access to water. And it is the PNM under my colleague, the Minister for Public Utilities, that is going to improve water supply for persons in Charlottesville, Dallaford, Roxborough, by the construction of the Goldsboro Water Treatment Plant. That is performance, that is service, and that demonstrates that the PNM cares. The PNM cares. No matter what they come and tell you, the PNM cares. If the PNM didn't care in this hard guava season, you think I will not leave the minimum wage as it is? But because we care, we took it to $20.50. Now I work out the maths, right? And that $20.50 means an additional approximately $520 in your pockets. Now I kind of worked out my maths this afternoon, and I came to the conclusion that that $520, if I live in Charlottesville, would give me return bus tickets to Scarborough for a whole month, and I have changed leave over to get a $150 hamper from Viewport, or a $200 hamper from Penny Savers. Ain't that good, people? We ain't just putting money in your pocket, but we're giving you the means and the ways to support your family and to help to take you and your family out of hardship. Because the PNM cares about you, your development, and your ability to transform yourself and your family and build generational wealth, the People's National Movement decided to partner with ALTA to ensure that we expand the reach of the adult literacy program, capturing those persons who may have literacy challenges and bringing them to a level where they can then become more empowered. You see, our philosophy is this. We don't want to keep you dependent on us. We don't want to keep you waiting on handouts from us. We want to take you from stage to stage, level to level. Have you so empowered and show off yourself that if your pocket nice enough and you feel bright enough, you can say, we ain't bound for you again, because you believe in the goodness and the power of the people of Trinidad and Tobago to always be right, to always do right, and to always be sensible when choosing governments. Now in Tobago, we have a team that is encouraging our people to take a chance when the general election comes in terms of who is going to govern Trinidad and Tobago. Now, once bitten, twice shy. We already experienced Tobago under a PP government. Or you want to go back there? Or you want to get Tanti Kams back as the leader of this country? Or you also want to get Moonilal and them back in powers of position? Or you also want to get the UNC people back in the treasury of Trinidad and Tobago? Then take sense some nonsense. If anybody trying to convince you to vote for any other party that ain't the red party, obviously they hand you over to who? the UNC, we ain't going back down the road. We experienced at Tobago under the UNC where we could not access self-help grants. We experienced at Tobago under the UNC where our airport was looking like a, what to call it, a goat pen? We experienced at Tobago under the UNC where every minute they were causing bassa between the THA and central government. But we know with the strong, stable, focused leadership of any PNM Prime Minister and any PNM government, Tobago always thrive. So I'm encouraging all of you, use your power of influence. Use your power of influence so good. Go out on the highways and the byways. Go out in the streets, go out in the alleys, and start spreading the message of how important it is to vote wisely when the time comes. Your best bet is a vote for the People's National Movement. What is your best bet? What is your best bet? What is your best bet? Obviously, the People's National Movement. So don't let it come and try to confuse your brain. As I said during the debate, Tom drunk, but Tom ain't foolish. We know what we're about and we know what we're doing. Sometimes people are afraid to speak out, but this is a democratic country. We have the power of influence through our voices. So let us go out there and use that power of influence and educate the undereducated or the uneducated. Because a lot of young people today, they're getting carried away by hype and mama guy. A lot of young people today getting carried away by tomfoolery. So I want to encourage all of you to ensure you educate the young people, because our youth would have benefited tremendously under the People's National Movement. I want to talk to the men now. The PNM has not left you behind or left you undone. I was pleased to present in Guyana on some of the initiatives coming out from my sister's ministry. Empower, transforming the lives of young men. I had young men in Tobago East who had the opportunity to be a part of that program, and I have seen them thrive, becoming more upstanding citizens, being able to contribute to their family, their community. Empower is doing good, and that is a PNM initiative. So brothers and sisters, once you go out, you spread the word. Once you advocate, once you communicate, once you educate, when the time comes, we will all continue to say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail. Thank you.
Be ready now, be ready now. Yes!
I'm sorry that tonight I am the Grim Reaper when the time is concerned. But brothers and sisters, this is what happens when you're at a PNM meeting. There is so much information to be shared with you that you don't have time. You do have time, but pay close attention to what we do in this organization, in this movement, in this government. You know, I want to tell the Chief Secretary, take warning. You better take warning. The prefect, his former prefect, said, boy, behave yourself. Right now, he could do with some lines. Right now, he needs to be put out of the class. When we take away corporal punishment from school. But right now, he needs to be put out of the class. We will not tolerate disrespect. And brothers and sisters, we as the People's National Movement ought to stand up with a loud voice and push back against the disrespect that is shown. How could you disrespect, even if you want to talk about the man's political career, but to attack a man like Orville London's teaching legacy in Tobago, you have to be out of your place. I would not talk about the present Chief Secretary's teaching record because I don't know. But I could talk about Mr. London's record. He didn't teach me. He taught my brother. My brother, he was a colleague of my father. And for you to stand up and disrespect a man's teaching legacy, Something has to be wrong with you. Brothers and sisters, put your hands together again for our Member of Parliament for Tobago East. Woman of substance, woman of power, precision, ammunition, if you please. She don't play. She don't play. But brothers and sisters, we start to get to where the air is a bit rare. We have a man coming to the podium at this time who they like to call Mr. Receipts. I want to recognize, before he comes, I want to recognize our former political leader of the Tobago Council, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine. Ambassador as well, a woman who has worked for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We go into a place where the air is rare. They call him Mr. Receipts. And I'm afraid for some people tonight, because I have the feeling that when the political leader of the Tobago Council comes now, trouble takes some people. And some people had to run for cover. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome to the podium at this time, former Chief Secretary and political leader of the People's National Movement Tobago Council, the young and the vibrant Mr. Ansel Dennis.
I am so glad I got to serve you. Sometimes I think humbly I don't deserve you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Hislop. Of course, allow me to recognize our distinguished Tobago son of the soil, a man from right here in Mason Hall, our Prime Minister, our political leader, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Of course, our Member of Parliament for Tobago East and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Honorable Ayanna Webster-Roy. Minister of Sport and Community Development and Member of Parliament for Tobago West, Mrs. Shamfa Kojo Lewis. Our hard-working and very potent minority leader, Assemblyman Kelvon Morris. Of course, our chairman of the Tobago Council of the PNM, Mr. Larry Paul. Other officers of the PNM Tobago Council, and those visiting us as well from the National Executive. Assistant Secretary is here with us this evening, and we are also in the presence of a number of my former colleagues in the Tobago House of Assembly, and we have the pleasure of being in the company of 3 former Deputy Chief Secretaries of the Tobago House of Assembly. We have Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine, Mr. Joel Jack, and Ms. Cynthia Alfred. Former secretaries as well, Mrs. Marcelin Melville Jack, Mrs. Nadine Stewart Phillips, Mr. Godwin Adams, Mr. Jomo Pitt, and I hope I did not forget anybody. Mr. Kwesi Devine sitting right next to Mrs. Jack. So of course it is a pleasure to be in Mason Hall. I am not sure where my neighbor string is buried, but I have Mason Hall roots. My father was a dentist from Mason Hall, and it is a pleasure to be here. And I want to say a special good evening to all the Mason Hallians in our midst. And of course, all PNM supporters from across Tobago. I am seeing persons from as far as Glamorgan, persons from Pembroke, persons from Castara, persons from Charlottesville. And while this evening you did not have to brave the weather, people in Tobago, especially PNM people, have had to brave something else, and that is wickedness in high places. And I want to start by playing a voice note to really set the platform for my contribution this evening. Because you see, right now in Tobago, there is something called the air of fear. For the first time in the history of Tobago, I was born in 1987, and I cannot recall that there was ever a time when Tobago people, especially those employed by the Tobago House of Assembly, were so afraid for their livelihood and so afraid for their very lives. And I want to play this voice clip. Of course, I am going to edit the audio. I hope you could hear it clearly. You all hear it clearly? All right, just now. All right. So this is not how the person's voice sung, it's a real person. But I have to disguise the person's voice because, as you know, I protect my whistleblowers.
I'm not taking the chance today to come because to open up. Afraid the world people wicked. I know they're watching, and I said, let me take the chance. I watch on TV home tonight or radio. I will take the chance to come today. Afraid me, I lose my work.
So basically, this is a Tobagonian who wish to be here this evening to join all of you. And there are many people like that. But they're saying they're afraid. People watching. Secretaries are going around in divisions, asking particular persons in the divisions who are the PNM people. And this evening I will show you a real example, a classical example of what is happening in Tobago as it relates to political victimization and the wickedness being demonstrated by this Farley-led THA administration. Because since December the 6th, 2021, in not too many days, it's going to be 2 years since this administration came into office, Tobago has been led in 3D. And when you hear 3D, you think about going to the cinema and putting on your 3D glasses to look at particular movies that may be in 3D format. Tobago is being led and managed in 3D. Disrespect, dishonesty, and destruction. And I want to say to you that, of course, we have had a number of chief secretaries. Ho Choi Charles was the first. And let's start from the chairman. A.N.R. Robinson, Jeff Davidson, Lennox Denoon. And then we had Ho Choi Charles as the first chief secretary. Then we had Orville London for 16 years. Then Kelvin Charles, then yours truly. And now we have Farley Augustine. It is the most disrespectful, uncouth, classless, unmannerly chief secretary. And let me do just say chief secretary. All the things that I just said, he's the most of that we have ever had in the Caribbean. I cannot recall, because of course I pay attention to the politics of other Caribbean islands, and I cannot recall anywhere in the Caribbean where there was ever a more disrespectful leader in those jurisdictions. And therefore we have found ourselves in serious trouble. Because the disrespect started very early. You all remember when he said to our seniors, describing them as people walking with stick and their knee break up, and that they should go home and mind grandbabies, talking about people who contributed in the Tobago House of Assembly for many years. Disrespectful. He said to the business persons, who are awaiting payments for 2 years now, banks foreclosing on them, creditors crying out to them for the money. He said to them, I don't care, I don't business about your arrangements with the bank. He said to somebody else, who dead, dead, and who live, live. Disrespectful. Of course, having attracted police attention because of his conduct. You all remember AudioGate? I've said a lot about AudioGate, so I don't need to go there again. Having attracted police attention, he then lashed out against the commissioner of police, who is a female, talking about balisé bloomers and balisé petticoat, disrespectful. Then he went to our beloved Prime Minister that he will dig up some navel string, come to Mason Hall and dig it up and send it to Trinidad. Disrespectful, classless, uncouth. And that is what we have passing for leadership in the Tobago House of Assembly. And then a couple days ago, he's now attacking the legacy, the teaching legacy. Because of course, when you can't match people man to man, you have to try to bring them down to your level. But anybody, any man could go in a store and buy a suit. But you will never go in a store and see class for sale. And I'm saying when you compare Orville London and Farley Augustine, they are not of the same class. There is no comparison. So with his disrespectful self, he's suggesting to us that a man who taught Tobago's children for more than 25 years, teaching even before, probably before Farley was born, left teaching while Farley was still in primary school. But you are so disrespectful, you're talking about he didn't do well as a teacher. What you know about the teaching legacy of Orville London? Where were you when he was teaching Tobago's children? When he was principal of one of the premier secondary schools on this island, a school that I proudly went to, Signal Hills Secondary Comprehensive School. Disrespectful. And you see the disrespect is being followed by the members of his executive. Because here you have Trevor James, so disrespectful to the people of Tobago that he's going to say to us, after they spent $2 million to build the first dry weather drain in the history of Tobago. Just imagine that. Now, I've seen dry weather buildings where sometimes as rainfall it begins to leak. We spent $2 million on a dry weather drain down in Crown Point. Trevor James telling the people of Tobago, be grateful, be happy. We found a solution to a problem that existed, according to him, for decades. Lie. I remember passing there. Yes, you used to have some water puddled at the side of the road. And that was very annoying to me. I used to call the secretary almost every morning, rainfall. But that was one little puddle. They went and they spent $2 million of taxpayers' money. And we now have a feature in Tobago, a new feature, that the people down in Tobago West are calling Notsi River. And of course, Notsi is the nickname of the assemblyman for that particular district. So $2 million to establish a dry weather drain. The drain only good when rain not falling. As soon as rain fall, vehicles can pass, vehicles turning back. And the secretary is telling us, Trevor James, that Tobago people must be proud. Disrespectful. In the House, the minority leader told you earlier, several questions were asked, very simple questions. And when the minority leader goes to the House to ask a question, He's not asking for himself. Because half the time you already know the answers, some of them very ridiculous to the questions. But it is on behalf of the people of Tobago, so that you could know what is happening in the Tobago House of Assembly, so that you could know how this administration is spending your money. 6 months ago, the minority leader asked the secretary, tell us the members of the Studley Park board. 6 months ago, the House went on a break for 2 months, between, I think it was August and September. The secretary came back to the very first sitting after the 2-month break to ask for more time to do research to tell us who are the members of his own board. Yours saw, I think it was last month, where the presiding officer, their own presiding officer, became so disgusted that she said to the secretary, you have to respond in 10 days. The same Cheba with his disrespectful self came back to the last sitting a month later to ask for another deferral. He cannot tell you who are the persons managing our quarry, but I can tell you for a fact that the head of the quarry is a man of great magical prowesses. Because I'm sure you remember back in 2013, it was the same Mr. Orville London who told us about a situation where a man was able to construct a mansion in record time. No problem. But when asked how you did it, the response was, well, I plant pumpkin and cucumber. That is the man in charge of our quarry. And I wouldn't tell you anything further because they have to answer at some point. Because we want to know how much he's being paid, and we want to know what qualifies him to be not the chairman, the executive chairman of the quarry board. Because an executive chairman is somebody that has day-to-day responsibilities for the management of the company's affairs. And therefore that person is akin to a CEO, and you expect them to be qualified in order to manage the quarry effectively. And that is why we are asking the questions. So they continue to disrespect us. But as I always do, I came with some receipts. Because apart from the disrespect, they are extremely dishonest. I've been counting the lies told by this chief secretary alone, and it's more than 40. On another occasion, I will list the lies. I'm waiting for it to reach 100. And you're laughing. This is a serious matter. We have a leader in Tobago who is incapable of speaking the truth. Right? So they are disrespectful and they are extremely dishonest. So they came into office with a promise that they will fix everything. 20 years, PNM did nothing according to them. Let me fix this, right? The campaign throughout Tobago, looking at all the community centers the PNM built, looking at the road infrastructure put in place by the PNM. They even campaigned in Roxborough, walked past the police station. Well, I know the leader of the PDP at the time was staying very far from the police station. Walked past the hospital, the administrative complex, the fire station, and they were telling people in Roxborough that the PNM did nothing. Sonny Craig, with his out-of-place self, came to Boko, watched the primary school, the community center, the sprawling integrated facility, the health center, the new boardwalk I had just opened, right? The decent road infrastructure. To tell the people of Buku, the PNM did nothing. And I'm sure every one of you, whichever community you reside in, you can walk through your community and point to several examples of physical development brought to you by the People's National Movement here in Tobago. And not only that, because you know sometimes you think development is only the visual things that you could see, the buildings, the roads, the cultural complex, the market, the sporting facilities, the community centers. Development is also about people. And I'm sure you can identify across Tobago several young people, including the disrespectful Chief Secretary, that benefited in some way from the programs and policies of the People's National Movement. Right? So now, the Prime Minister is here, and this central government was so collaborative in the initial stages and even up to now. Of course, they sent almost, well, I think it was the whole cabinet that came to Tobago and sat for hours meeting with Farley and his team. And of course, at that time, we knew they were inexperienced, but we did not know at the time that they were so dangerous and lied. So of course, they sat with them, they made plans, they talked about Tobago's issues, Tobago's governance. And in addition to that, in their first budget exercise, the central government, the same central government they are now accusing of being hateful to Tobago, that same central government gave this THA administration $200 million more than the last PNM administration. I want you to let that sink in. We got voted out of office as PNM. A new administration came in that was not PNM. The PNM central government, during its budgetary exercise, allocated to this THA administration $200 million more. And Joel will tell you if we did get that, if we had that $200 million, what we were going to do. They got $200 million more. In addition to that, come this year, the last budget that was just read, they got an additional $64 million. And I want you to take your mind back. I'm not telling you about 16 years and 20 years. Go back to the pandemic, the last 2 years of the PNM in Tobago, what was done, the kind of governance you had, the fact that your leaders were very respectful. We knew how to dress. We knew how to conduct ourselves. You did not see us in fets with rum glasses on our heads. We did not cuss anybody. No, we used to cuss amongst ourselves when we arguing and talking and thing and Tracy want everything for she area and Joel want everything for he area. We would discuss and we will talk. Right? But we knew how to conduct ourselves and we knew how to manage Tobago people's business. Compare that to what you have now. So they got $200 million more. And look around Tobago and tell me where you see $200 million more. What did they do with the $200 million plus $64 million? Well, they just get that. What did they do? Somebody tell me rent a jet. I come into that. Wait. What did they do with the money? And the Chief Secretary, with his dishonest self, is telling the people of Tobago that when we do the maths and we sit down and we talk, infrastructure will be left with $6 million. You must be left with $6 million. You see, not telling you all, that last fiscal year, he sent away a whole $300 million to Trinidad contractors. He's not going to tell you all that, right? The $6 million left, he's not going to tell you all that they built a stage in the sea for $2 million. They're not going to tell you all that in their first year of office, our last year we spent in recurrent $1.75 million. In their first year, they carried up to $1.95 million. And I want to explain something to all you. $1.95 million, right? Billion, sorry. THA's allocation is separated into development and recurrent. When we were there, we looked at the entire situation and we reprioritized and we made decisions on how we were going to spend Tobago's money for that particular period. Right? Yeah, I gave them a few tips, but they had so hard, they would not learn one thing. So I ain't afraid. So when we looked at the entire picture, we determined the priorities, whether it's infrastructure or whatever the priorities are, and we allocated the funding accordingly. But you see the catch is, if you get $300 million for development, you have to find some more development money somehow. And the trick was, you squeeze the recurrent budget, or you maintain the recurrent expenditure to a particular level, so that at the end of the fiscal year, you have whatever is the savings there to come across to your development side. First, these people do have sense. They inflated their recurrent expenditure, right? And the minority leader gave you a hint earlier of some of the things that they did. You have the office of the Deputy Chief Secretary. The salary bill there is what? $19 million per year. The personal staff that we had, right? They looked at that arrangement where each secretary before had an advisor, a personal assistant, a personal secretary, and a chauffeur, right? They said that not enough. They add 2 more, right, for secretaries. And then for assistant secretaries that had before a personal secretary, they add 2 or 3 staff in those offices there. So through that arrangement alone, the salary levels increased by about $6 million per year. Right? And we haven't spoken yet about the travel. Every Monday morning is a trip. And when they're supposed to spend 2 days, when the event is 2 days, they're taking 10. Who going to Berlin and leave from Berlin to go to Jamaica to sign a MOU? Let me call him, the Chief Secretary, Farley Augustine. Went to World Travel Market in Berlin, left Berlin and went to Jamaica. And he told us that he was going to Jamaica to sign an MOU. Since then, the minority leader asking for the MOU. The last excuse was some ambassadorial person had to see it and sanction some aspects of it. We can't see the MOU yet that the Chief Secretary signed. And of course, when he went there, he took Whitey, the Secretary of Housing, to go to Jamaica to look at house, because we don't have any decent examples of housing in Tobago. All of a sudden, we in Tobago don't know how to build house. And even if you don't want to look at Tobago, none of those HDC developments in Trinidad presented a good example to you so that you could know what you're going to do in terms of your housing program. So you're going to Jamaica. Terrence Baines was there, sitting down and meeting with Jamaican public servants, not politicians, public servants, wasting our taxpayers' money. And if that was not enough, we keeping our first October Carnival, which, by the way, is a PNM policy. We determined before we left office that we needed to have a separate carnival in Tobago in order to get maximum support, especially from our brothers and sisters in Trinidad. Because guess what? Even Tobagonians were leaving Tobago to go along to Trinidad and participate in their carnival. So they decided, rather than paying airfare, I think it was $300 at the time return, and a taxi to Port of Spain to go and talk to the NCC and talk to Ronnie and Carlos and Peter Minchell and whoever else you want to talk to about Carnival, you gone to Grenada to market Carnival because you want to partner with Grenada for Carnival. And you carry a whole bandload of people, again, wasting taxpayers' money. And therefore, having wasted the money on travel and exorbitant, unnecessary salaries on the recurrent side, you're coming to complain now about you don't have enough money to pave roads and to do what you have to do. Right? And that is what we have passing for leadership. Now, one of the strategies, as you would have obviously recognized, because they cannot win another election in Tobago based on performance. They cannot. So the new strategy to try to stay in office, to thief more, is to try to get Tobago people to hate Trinidad and to hate the Trinidad government and to hate Rowley and to hate the PNM. That is the new strategy. So they're coming now to talk about autonomy. I want to remind all you why autonomy bill in 2021 was not passed. Give me the first document. So, everybody's seeing the document, right? So all of us are aware that the then Chief Secretary Orville London collaborated with all the political leaders in Tobago, Ho Choi Charles included, and Ashworth Jack included in the beginning. But of course, after he got involved, he got instructions from his handlers in Trinidad to fall out of that. So, we worked together in Tobago, all the political parties, from 2013 to 2016. Now, that was not the only time we consulted on this issue. Consultations have been going on for years. There was the John Prince Committee established in 2006. But the latest trust, right, began in 2013 when all the political leaders came together. And it warmed my heart when Ho Choi Charles said to London privately, and then he told us that Ho Choi Charles said, listen, let us put aside our differences and stop fight separately. Let's fight together for this thing called autonomy. So let me come together and fight, and when we get it, then we go fight one another to see who gonna manage it. So they came together, consultations in Trinidad, consultations across Tobago. I remember a massive conference in Signal Hill that had about 1,000 Tobagonians saying in one voice, this is what we want for Tobago. And then just before the 2017 THA election, we went to the House and we passed a bill. And that bill was sent to Trinidad. And of course, they looked at it. This government, led by our Tobago-born Prime Minister, set up a joint select committee to get the work done. And Tobago was speaking with one voice for the first time until we got to 2021. That was after the 6-6. Time for we to stay together and say loudly, this is what we want. Now, the bill was not perfect. And there will never ever be any perfect legislation. But the bill represented significantly more autonomy and significantly more benefits than the current arrangement. And I want to say to you that had that bill been passed, Farley would not be complaining about money now. They ship away 300 million. With that bill, they might have ship away 3 billion. Because that arrangement guaranteed that the THA would have gotten an additional $1.5 billion per year. So far, Tobago has lost about $3 billion over the last couple years that bill was not passed. In addition to that, we had the opportunity for the first time in the history of the Tobago House of Assembly to make laws for the good governance of Tobago. Now, currently, there is an arrangement to make laws, but when you go to the THA and you pass your bill, guess what? You have to send it to the cabinet, and cabinet will determine if it goes to parliament. And we have sent several bills, not one pass. But that latest version of autonomy was going to have Tobago establish its own legislature, the assembly and the president. And for the first time, we would have had complete autonomy as it relates to law making for matters under the responsibility of the Tobago Island government. That was not enough for them. So you know what they did? They wrote a letter. Go back to the previous part. And in that letter, they identified 6 issues. And I will only read one in the interest of time. Right? So issue number 1, they said that Tobago legislature must be created and its comparison clear, and its composition clear, 15 elected assemblymen, 4 councillors, 1 presiding officer, president, etc. A bicameral system was proposed to provide for appropriate oversight. A unicameral legislature is now being offered, but in order to have separation of powers and the practice of democracy with a unicameral structure, the chief secretary must be directly elected, and I will stop there. So for the first time, after we discussed this thing, and we came to a conclusion, and we sent a bill to Trinidad saying this is what we want, we had 2 individuals, Farley Augustine, I wouldn't call Ochoa name tonight, Farley Augustine saying, we now want to talk about direct election of the chief secretary. Where that came from? All of a sudden, take me to the last page. So having done that, this is what they ultimately said to all the parliamentarians. Now mind you, the PNM votes were already in the bag. All the PNM MPs, all the PNM senators were in support of this arrangement. Right? So in the last paragraph they said, in this circumstance, we urge you, and they're talking to the parliamentarians, as a constructive legislator, to vigorously and scrupulously seek to make the amendments as contained herein, failing which, reject these 2 bills. In other words, these are our proposals. Now, I had proposals too. Mrs. Celestine had proposals too. Every Tobagonian had their own proposal. Some support unicameral, some support bi. Some say direct election of a chief secretary. Everybody had their own view on the thing. But having gotten a consensus that this was what the people of Tobago wanted, they decided to collaborate with the UNC, and I'm saying they collaborated because guess what? Every single speaker, I was in the parliament, every single speaker on that occasion in that debate talked about lack of consultation and what Ochoa said and what Farley said. Nothing about what the bill had in it. Nothing about what other Tobagonians were saying and what Winford said. They did not even get to the committee stage where you would go through clause by clause and see what we agree with, what we do agree. It did not even get there. I think the opposition leader, who is hardly in the parliament, I was there. For the entire debate, she spent a total of half an hour in the parliament for 2 days of debate, I think it was. And then went on the media and proceeded to tear up the bills. And that is why we don't have autonomy now. But you're in office now. You realize that you really could have done with some more money. And after you sabotage the process, you're coming now to talk about autonomy. And I want to remind the people of Tobago that we had a very good chance of getting more responsibilities, greater powers for the people of Tobago, greater self-determination, more fiscal resources to treat with the development of the island. But for that letter that gave the UNC exactly what they required to withhold support for the bills. And now Farley coming to talk about autonomy. Farley need to hush. Right? So very disingenuous. And of course, in closing, they are also about destruction, total destruction of lives and livelihoods here in Tobago. Bring up the next document, because I want to tell all you how they're destroying a good thing that the PNM created. So here we have, on June the 6th, 2023, the CEO of TADCO is writing to all staff. You all seeing that? And the CEO is saying, and of course, no CEO will act on his own in these matters. So clearly, he was being instructed by the board, or perhaps even the chairman. And the CEO is saying, please be advised that the Chief Executive Officer will be out of office from Wednesday, 7th of June, 2023, to Monday, the 26th of June, 2023. In this circumstance, the operational responsibilities of the CEO will be shared by the Chairman of the Board of Directors, Mr. Ricardo Alfred, and the Deputy Chairman, Mr. Andre Cowan. Please be guided accordingly. And I want to ask those familiar with corporate business and boards and corporate governance, have you ever seen such madness? So you have the board responsible for the general oversight and direction of the company. And the board is saying to the CEO, when you go on vacation, make the same chairman of the board who is responsible for oversight share your responsibilities with him and the deputy chairman. So one CEO goes on vacation, you suddenly have two CEOs who must share the responsibility, and they happen to be the chairman and the vice chairman of the board. So himself is now providing oversight to himself. And I will tell you that in any serious company and in any serious administration who knows what they are doing, whenever a CEO goes off to vacation, it is somebody who is already an employee of the company at the senior management level who will act as CEO. So you have TADCO now. I don't even know if it was appointment. I don't know if the chairman and vice chairman got how long it was, a week, 2 weeks, a few days stint. And this is how they are managing Tobago's business. Show me the next document. And of course, 12 days later, the big chairman, writing now to all managers and staff, the chairman of the board is now directly interfering in the management and the administration of the company. And is writing to the staff a memo. Dear all, please be advised that any special requests or arrangements must be made in writing as it relates to hours of work. There will be no unauthorized working from home. please be guided accordingly. So the chairman of the board is now getting involved with setting working hours for the staff. And that is how TADCO is being managed. But they send home 60 workers saying the company unprofitable. They're refusing to finish the agro-processing plant that we started up at Goldsboro. They started a contract farming program, 30,000 chickens were spoiled. Well, I'm hearing now that the program stopped. Mismanaging the company, sending home the staff saying the company unprofitable and they can't pay staff. But this board, who continues to abuse taxpayers' money and who don't have a clue about corporate governance or even managing anything, still in place, paid by taxpayers' money. And that is what is happening in Tobago. But of course, they're not only destroying companies, they are destroying people, because I want to draw your attention as I close to this very interesting situation in the Tobago House of Assembly. Bring up the next document. So, in the Tobago House of Assembly, and I'm sure in the government as well, you have a number of contract employees, and contract renewal will be required from time to time. So you had in the Tobago House of Assembly a young man employed for 13 years in the THA, looking forward to his contract being renewed. In that document, if you read it, you will see the administrator having received a recommendation from the head of HR, minutes the secretary of the division, asking to re-engage the guy on a 3-year contract. I want you all to listen to me carefully, because this is the crux of the matter. On a 3-year contract, which according to the THA's policy is the standard 3-year contracts. Next page. And this is what I'm going to read for you all, because this is the response from the secretary of the division, Faith B. Israel, and pay attention to the dates. The secretary is saying, secretarial approval was sought to grant contract employment, and I do have to call the name, you're seeing it, for a period of May 16, 2022 to May 15, 2025. That is 3 years, right? So that is the standard. The administrator is not requesting anything unusual. Please note that approval is granted for the employment of the individual on contract for the period May 16, 2022 to July 15, 2023. Now let me explain something to you all. Note that the date of the minute, the date the secretary is writing here, is the 7th of the 6th month, 2023. So of course the guy assumed duties, resumed working for almost a year already. As a matter of fact, just about a year, with the expectation that his contract will be renewed. By the time all the paperwork was done, and by the time the thing finally reached the secretary's desk for approval, the secretary is saying effectively, right, because the date was the 7th of the 6th, take 1 more month. You all understand what's going on here? Take 1 more month, because I'm writing on the 7th of the 6th, and I'm saying that you must go home by the following month, July 15th. So a 1-year contract, a 3-year contract, sorry, by the stroke of a pen, turned into a contract of not even exactly a year, but 1 year and 2 months. That is what is happening in the Tobago House of Assembly. That is why I played the voice note earlier, that somebody is saying to me, I want to come and exercise my constitutional right to associate and to support whichever political party I choose to, but afraid because they're looking to see who in meetings. They're looking to see who are the PNM people in the divisions. And this is what the secretaries are doing to them. And this is not the only case. On this occasion, a whistleblower just happened to say, this ain't right. And took out a picture and sent it to me and said, this is what's going on in the THA. So anybody in the THA, and you may feel that it happened to this guy and it can't happen to you. But I want to warn all THA contract employees. This can happen to anybody. Because I'm aware that Ian Pollard, calling names confidently, have some files for contract renewals on his desk that the administrator recommended for renewal. And he have them on his desk sitting there for months and not signing on them because they want to bust your throat and send you home so that they could bring in who they consider to be their people. And I'm saying to you that the PNM never operated in that way. For the first time, people in Tobago cannot freely associate with political parties, cannot freely express their opinions, cannot freely talk in a meeting. One secretary in one division, a young lady on a board, opened her mouth and made a recommendation to the secretary. By the next day, she was off the board. And that is who we have in Tobago leading the charge, leading this island. But I want to say to all of you supporters gathered here, and of course, your presence here signals that you don't afraid them. And in some cases, some of you may not be in a position where you depend on the Tobago House of Assembly or you depend on them for your bread and butter. Because they talked about bread and butter issues when they were campaigning. But here they are taking the bread and taking the butter. And all people have to go with is the bread bag and the butter container. While they are enjoying ham, lamb, and jam, flying on private jets, if you please. And I wouldn't talk about the private jet, I run out of time. But all I will tell you is that it was not the first time that secretary flew via private jet. So that matter is being investigated by the relevant authorities, as was said in the news, and by the next meeting, I may have a lot more to say about that. But I want to say to you that on every occasion where there is misbehavior and this kind of wickedness taking place, the People's National Movement will stand up for you. We will report them to the Integrity Commission. We will report them to the police. We will report them to the Equal Opportunities Commission. And we will even sponsor, as far as possible, courthouse action. Because they must understand that while they feel they could sit in their high offices and do Tobagonians as they please, there is a place called the courthouse. And while sometimes it might move slow, as a lawyer said to another lawyer representing some THA workers who were dismissed, the THA lawyer said to the workers' lawyer, see you in 2 years. So their position is, take away your work, cut your livelihood, because they know, one, the money to pay you not coming out your pocket because you're going to take them to court and win it. This guy is going to go to court and win. The CPEP workers, the URP workers, the TADCO workers, they are going to go to court and they will win in the industrial court. But they know the money not coming out of their pockets, and they're hoping that the matter will not be heard in time for the next election. So I'm saying to all of us, now it's time to fight back. We are at the halfway point, 24 months to go. I understand that some of you are fearful, but guess what? Hiding will not make a difference. Because whether you hide or not, they have already branded some of you as either PNM And you don't even have to be PNM. You just have to not smile with them when the day comes. And we must not sit and continue to allow that to happen. So we will prepare our plans for Tobago. We will prepare our troops. Because, of course, you always say, great is the PNM. But this time around, we must truly demonstrate our greatness by returning to office in 24 months or less and restoring dignity and good governance and rescuing the people of Tobago and this island that we all love. And only then can we truly say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we have prevailed.
I know you're proud in this moment, you are the reason. Higher than higher heights is our limit, no we ain't leaving. No one behind, no will not desert you. I see myself inside you, I know.
Frank Sinatra sang a song. I feel to sing, but I ain't gonna sing. He sang, come fly with me, let's fly away. And some secretaries just love the habit of flying, but we gonna wait for that information politically, that we will wait for it. Brothers and sisters, I'm not gonna delay us any longer. You know, I have no bones in saying, and I'm not gonna apologize for saying, that this current Prime Minister has done more for Tobago than any other. And if I want to combine what all of the other Prime Ministers have done, Dr. Keith Rowley has surpassed what he has done for Tobago. Long time. They want us to hate the man, but we can't hate him. They want us to say that he's not nice, but he's nice. The man from Mason Hall, I almost say my friend, as my boss, the Tobago boy, the Mason Hall boy. Brothers and sisters, put your hands together, rise to your feet as we welcome to the podium the Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul. Yeah. Somebody touch me, praise to me, Jesus. Somebody touch my soul. Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul. Who, me? While I was praying, praise to me, Jesus.
Thank you very much, Senator Hislop. Permit me to acknowledge my parliamentary and cabinet colleagues, the Member of Parliament for Tobago West, Mr. Shamfa Kojo Lewis, and my colleague from Tobago East, Mrs. Ayana Webster Roy. I would also like to acknowledge and pay particular recognition to the good work being done by the minority leader in the Tobago House of Assembly, Ms. Kelvin Morris, and of course, mobilizing you and keeping you alert and informed in Tobago as leader of the Tobago Island Council, deputy political leader of the People's National Movement, former Chief Secretary, and Sylvia. I'm very happy to see you all out here on a Sunday evening, getting yourselves informed, and we are broadcasting what is going on here. So thank you very much for coming and allowing us to talk to you, and on the basis of what we say to you, the rest of the country would hear, because we reach them on the radio, on the television, and on social media platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very concerned. I'm very concerned about the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago. As Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, I took an oath of office to be responsible for the affairs of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And before that oath was taken, I want to just introduce myself to you all, because I'm astounded that
the education of the people of Tobago now, especially the young people who don't know the facts, could be exposed to what they've been exposed to now. And there are grave dangers in what they're being exposed to. Ladies and gentlemen, this month, November, I think it was November, would allow me to say that I have been in public life for 42 years. I first mounted a PNM political platform here in Tobago in 1980. I contested a general election in Tobago in 1981. And I lost to a fellow called James O'Geese. I don't know how many of you remember the name James O'Geese. But I didn't give up on Tobago. As a matter of fact, I always maintained that that campaign was the best election campaign that I was ever engaged in. Because it was so very difficult politically. But it was such a commitment on my part, on the part of the PNM team that I worked with, that we came within a hair's breadth of pulling off that seat in Tobago West. It was lost by 360 votes, I think it was. And even though I was not elected to represent you, I was so satisfied with the fact that so many people in Tobago who were being educated to hate the PNM turned away from that teaching and almost voted me into office. Many years later, living in Trinidad, I contested the general election in Diego Martin. And I've been the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West since 1991. Today, I hold the office of Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And it is not for me, I have no intention of asking anybody, least of all in Tobago, to respect me. It's either you have it or you don't have it. You know it or you don't know it. But the one thing you're not going to get from me is any fight with any office holder in Tobago over respect, any fight with any office holder in Tobago over truth, and any fight with any office holder in Tobago over office. Because the cabinet that I lead, those two ladies there will tell you, and I tell them over and over and over, do not fall in love with office. Very important. Because it is when you fall in love with office that you can behave in a particular kind of way because you believe that you are entitled to office. Ladies and gentlemen, I met many of you in 2021 when I briefly took part in your campaign. Because as Prime Minister, I make it very, very clear that I do not interfere in the affairs of the operations of the Tobago House of Assembly. I've been around too long. As Chalkless would say, I'm in town too long to know that that is not what the Prime Minister is supposed to do. But I took an oath of office, and assuming the assignment of Prime Minister to be responsible for the affairs of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And in Tobago, there's an executive body which gets a fair amount of money, has significant legal authority, and they have support from a public service that they are responsible at a different level for the affairs of the people of Tobago. The Tobago House of Assembly exists. There are people in there, they call themselves or they're identified in the law as secretaries, and they have serious responsibilities. But at the same time, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has significant responsibilities for the people of Tobago in the office of the Prime Minister. So when you hear people from the Tobago House of Assembly telling the central government to stay out of Tobago
and telling the Prime Minister to don't get involved in Tobago affairs, what they're asking you to do is to breach your oath of office. And I have no intention of breaching my oath of office. None whatsoever. And I have every intention of ensuring that the people of Tobago get everything that the Parliament says that the people of Tobago should get. And the policy of the PNM government in Trinidad and Tobago is that as we develop the nation, develop the country, that we try to leave no one behind, whether you're in Karapichaima, whether you're in Carinage, whether you're in Charlottesville, whether you're anywhere in this country, we are not going to run the country with a policy to leave you behind. So when you hear upstarts in Tobago talking about central government, this and central government, that and central government, the other, half of them or three-quarters of them or 90% of them don't know what they are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen of Tobago, those of you in this room and those of you not in this room, the record will show that as Prime Minister leading a party that was heavily defeated in an election, a THA election, but one which had lived in a time when others ran Tobago. We had one seat in the assembly, not once, not twice, but repeatedly. But we kept faith with the people of Tobago that we are here for your benefit whenever you need us, as we are here tonight for the benefit of the people of Tobago whenever you need the PNM, and you will need the PNM sometime in the not too distant future. How did I go about relating to the new Tobago House of Assembly? Of course, you would have heard what was said on election night, but that was just so much exuberance on the part of people who have found themselves where they had never expected to be. But the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, as I was and I am, I had a responsibility to the people of Tobago. And I went to the swearing in fact, before that, when you all voted in the 6-6, I came here as Prime Minister and I called all of them together at Magdalena. And I tried to ask them to see if they could find a way to work together. You remember that story? I chaired the meeting. Some PNM people, some PDP people, and asked them, is there a way that you all could find to work together? And the central government will support it until the election settles it. They couldn't, which is not surprising because political pull and tug, they couldn't find a way to work together, but the election was not far away. And you got to the polls, and the PNM won one seat, but the government of Trinidad and Tobago remained the PNM government. I went to the swearing in and something struck me. I didn't know all of the candidates, but quite a few of them I knew. There were 8 people that I identified as elected people opposed to the PNM who were being sworn in that day when I went to the swearing in to provide the office of Prime Minister in support of the swearing in. The 8 people I identified who I knew were 8 people who at some time during the term of recent times were people with responsibility to carry out duties on behalf of the PNM Tobago House of Assembly. And that is 8 that I knew. There might have been more. Of the 14, there were 8 of them who had, when I heard their CVs, where they came from, they largely came from the management structure of the Tobago House of Assembly. And when the appointments were made in the Assembly, one of them who was appointed happened to have held the office of HR manager in the PNM Assembly. I said, oh God, oh. That was Tobago. But I looked at them, and not one of them had any experience of managing anything. And as Prime Minister, I became concerned. Because already the threats and the promise of fighting the central government was on the horizon. I did not want that to be the record of this term, or any term for that matter. So what did I do? I called up the Chief Secretary and arranged with him to come and meet the cabinet so that these green people could have an idea what is bark and what is bough, what is root and what is branch. And I brought with me to Tobago a large chunk of the government, the Attorney General, the Minister of Works, the Minister of Tourism, the Minister of Planning and Development, and we sat down at the Prime Minister's office from 1 o'clock till 6 o'clock, trying to get them to understand how the systems work. And of course, we proceeded to try to get things done for the benefit of the people of Tobago. As we progressed, I realized that politics was taking over performance in Tobago. The party that won the election disappeared, others became independent, then they formed party, I think, and you would have observed that as Prime Minister, I did not get involved in stoking those fires because it was not in the interests of the people of Tobago. All that they went through, all that they're going through, including police and warrants, were of their own doing without the PNM, without the central government, without the Prime Minister. They did that to themselves. And then, across the water, I see a need to come back again and do something that would give the people of Tobago the best chance to succeed in that environment. So I called up the Chief Secretary. I asked him to come and sit with me. He came, and we sat for 1 hour and 45 minutes at the Prime Minister's residence here in Tobago. You know what we were talking about? I was talking to him about a development plan for Tobago. Because Tobago has to have a development plan of some kind if the managers are going to function against some kind of background of what do you do with your time, what do you do with your money, what do you do with your ideas, what are the people of Tobago going to look forward to? And we parted on the note that the Chief Secretary and his team, alongside their colleagues in the central government, will come up with this development plan, which they will agree on, and once we get agreement on this overall plan, the central government will support it. So then it doesn't matter who is in office or who is out of office, it's just a question of performance now, because the development plan will be clear to all of us for Tobago. And we parted on that note as office holders in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Prime Minister, he's Chief Secretary. We have a responsibility to the people of Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The next thing I know, 1 week or so later, I see a special session of the Assembly being called. The Assembly is in session. I'm watching to see what the business of the Assembly is in a special session being called in that way, called back from vacation. And I see the Chief Secretary with some unknown character, videotaped, and is talking inside the Assembly, accusing me of criminal conduct. Criminal conduct in conspiring with the Commissioner of Police, my lawyer, and the leader of the PNM in Tobago to undermine the administration of the Tobago House of Assembly. This evening I'll say, fellow party members, and for those of you outside who are party supporters, just Tobagoans in general, that matter is now in the court. It's in the court. But I could tell you I'm still in shock. I am still in shock. because I never expected that. But ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't end there. Having created that scenario, because understand something, this wasn't a Tobago incident. That was the world being told by instant communication that in Trinidad and Tobago, you have a prime minister and a commissioner of police and a senior counsel and a leader of a party who just came out as former chief secretary who will engage in what they are in fact accusing the PNM of. And you have to ask yourself, what causing that? And it's simple. If you take away Watson Duke party, make Watson Duke a vagrant in Trinidad, political vagrant, you form party in Tobago, one thing that political parties need is political oxygen. You have to have some basis to mobilize people. You have to have something to offer them. You have to tell them something is wrong with them and you could fix it. So you form this party at my expense, at the expense of the reputation of the nation, telling the world that the Prime Minister and the Commissioner of Police is engaged in criminal conduct and paying somebody money to do that. And you carry that inside the assembly and put it on the record in the assembly. People of Tobago, when did we become like that? When did that become a part of Tobago's ethos? The Prime Minister of Tobago, one of the little ones, they never know that anybody could hate Tobago so, like how the Prime Minister hates Tobago. And all I will say, girl, don't catch yourself. Catch your falling feathers. But these are your managers. These are your managers. I could tell you all now. I've been employed for very many years. And so is my spouse, my wife. Over the years, the majority of my investments have been in Tobago. Contrary to what they will want to tell you, I am deeply rooted in this island of Tobago. And no political party could deny me my Tobago-ness. None. And no chief secretary could bestow upon me title of Tobagonian, because I am that, and that I will always be. When I was able to, I built my house in Mason Hall. I live in Mason Hall. I'm probably in Tobago more often than most of them because they can't smell gasoline in the airport, they ain't got on the plane. I have my house in Mason Hall. I bought the land that my father worked on, that I grew up on, I bought it. I have a farm there in Tobago. It's on their political platform as something somehow to be damaging to me politically, that I have a farm in Tobago. I love farming, I love to sweat in Tobago and I sweat in Alma. I brought my wife here to Tobago. I made her buy land in Mason Hall and develop it and create employment for people in Tobago. They're on the Friends political platform. I got my wife to make construction in Tobago, creating employment in Tobago. Wade Markham, and somebody sent here a picture of some building in Mason Hall, and Rowley got to explain that. Of course Rowley got to explain that. It's my money, I could explain it. What about yours? But you know what really angers me with that? All kind of Tom, Dick, Harry, and Miss Howard cat come and buy land and build in Tobago. Nobody wants to know. But my wife and I, with my encouragement, buy land in Mason Hall and build in Mason Hall is a problem for the PDP, the TPP, and the UNC. You all could go to hell. All of you. But what shocks me is that there are some Tobagonians who believe that that is something good. That is something good. And they believe they're doing me something. Not doing me anything. You see these young people in Tobago who are being taught that level of misinformation and the hatred and the entitlement without effort. I am worried about their future. Worried about it. Today, I was down at Magdalena and I had the opportunity to see this ferry coming in at full blast, coming in from Trinidad in full throttle. And I felt so proud to know that when I came in as Prime Minister, the express and the spirit had come to the end of their function in life. Did you all know that? So, not maintained were they that they could not get insurance to continue. In the first few months of my administration, those two vessels had to be pulled out of service and there was no real ferry service between Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, we were the government. And the very same people who created that environment of operating those two vessels to destruction, they were on the case of the government on the fact that there was no ferry. It got to the point where we look around the world, your situation was so bad, we look around the world, we couldn't find a ferry to rent or to purchase. We found a half-finished one somewhere in Asia. We bought it quickly, got it here. The one called the Galleon Passage. That was the best that was available because you can't go and buy ferries in supermarkets. I went to Australia and met the Australian government. Did what had to be done to get the Australian government to fund and to push us up in, help us get up in the line to get those two ferries. The APT James and the Buku Reef. Today you have two of the finest ferries in the world. You know what the partners of the PDP and the TPP and the PPP and all them did? You know what they did in that situation? When we announced that the Australian government, at the initiative of the Trinidad and Tobago government asking for help from Australia, you know what the friends in Trinidad did? They wrote the opposition in Australia and asked them to block it. Of course, the Australians didn't bother with them. The opposition in Australia didn't bother with them. They then wrote the Attorney General in Australia, giving the impression that there was some kind of corruption between the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and the Australian Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, and asked the Attorney General to intervene. He replied to them, telling them, well, if you have that kind of information, take it to the Australian police. That was the end of that. All of that was to prevent you from getting those two ferries. But those are the bedmates of the politicians in Tobago who are anti-PNM. The very said people who are blocking you from getting. When it was mentioned that we were building a small hospital in Roxborough, there were people saying to me in the parliament, we shouldn't do that because they don't have that in their constituency. I had to tell them, Tobago is not a constituency like yours. Tobago is the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and there's no country called Tobago and Pinalo, Tobago and Carnage. It's called Trinidad and Tobago. You heard from the Member of Parliament for Tobago East how women of the East now have the respect they deserve and the service they deserve from the hospital that was built in Roxborough. I grew up knowing that Roxborough was the second town in Tobago, and it had deteriorated to almost nothingness. But in short order, we built in Roxborough an administrative complex. They got a fire station, they got a new police station, they got a hospital. Well, they got all that. And we didn't do it for votes, we did it for development of the people of Tobago, because they went to the polling station and they vote against us mercilessly. But we are still happy that Roxborough has been developed in that way. Because we are about the development of the people of Tobago. And we also know that if you don't need us now, the day will come when the people of Tobago will need the people's national movement again. And that is why I am very pleased with the people that our party has selected to run our affairs in Tobago. I'm very pleased that those who had served in office before have not run away. Look, they're here with us this evening. We have former finance secretary here, former tourism secretary and the head of the party in Tobago, she's here. Other secretaries are here, PNM people standing in line for the service of the people of Tobago, because our day will come. It will come. And mark my word, it will come sooner rather than later. I remember when the PNM lost an election 33-3 in Trinidad in 1986, there were those who were telling me, I went into the Senate January 1987, and there were people telling me, oh, PNM could never come back. Change the party name, change the party symbol, change the party tie, and all that kind of story. 5 years later, the PNM won the general election. And I was here in Tobago when the PNM had 4 seats in the first assembly. We lost the election, we had 4 seats. And the next election we had 1. That was the election when we lost by 1 vote in Scarborough. And then the next one we had 1, and then the next one we have 1, and then I was here in 2013 when we had all 12. All 12. Because the PNM is not about election day. The PNM is about service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And there can be no service without commitment, competence, and respect for your assignment. No. Watch them. See what's happening. And ask yourself, if really, how long is the election day? 24 hours? 12 hours? Let me ask you all something. When you had the opportunity to get a sandals project in Tobago, how you didn't get it? Why you didn't get it? You know what some of the undescribables were saying? Well, the Prime Minister didn't sell it enough. So I have to go out of my way to create some kind of aircraft, some kind of spaceship to sell to you in Tobago, that the sandals model, which is the most successful tourism model in the Caribbean and in the lesser developed world, sandals, with one brand name. When that advertisement goes out and you see it anywhere in the world, it just simply says sandals. And if you have one in your country, you are advertised. And people who go there for their vacation and whatever else they do, they like to go to different sandals, and you will be called eventually, if you are you have them in the Bahamas, not one but many, Jamaica, Antigua, Barbados, Grenada, but in Tobago, it's bad for Tobago. And of course you have to imply that something, you know, the crooks in our country are the ones who talk about corruption the most, and they want to know the most about other people. But we always know that a thief hates to see a man with a bag, because he's sure a man thief something. And that is why the private company, because sandals is a private family business. When you start accusing them without a shred of evidence of acting in an underhand manner to take away lollipop from Trinidad and Tobago people, they say, we don't need that. We don't need that. And the leader of the party that led that charge said to them, don't come under the PNM, come back when I am in charge. Well, they won the election 2 years ago with the sandals. That was the plan. They couldn't say it was a bad idea. Tobagoans wanted opportunity. Tobagoans wanted jobs. Tobagoans wanted the economy. We wanted airlift. They couldn't go against that. But said what? Not under the PNM. Not under the PNM. But it's now 2 years. I sat, this is now, this year, what, this month, next month is 2 years in office. Well, they said when they get into office, it will come back. Where is it? But I'm putting you all on notice now. While the courthouse matter going on, and the teaching in Tobago, the bile and the hatred is being spilled out every night or every week whenever they go out and talk to Tobagonians. I received on my desk at Whitehall last week, but today is Sunday, last week, about 10 to 15 pounds of documents produced by the Tobago House of Assembly in Tobago, a development plan for Scarborough. Remember I told you all that my last face-to-face contact and meeting with the Chief Secretary was about a development plan for Tobago? But one of them, who is on a frolic of his own, have a development plan for Tobago. And I don't know who they hire, whatever, but they produce this humongous document, 2 folios, 2 documents, and throw it on my desk in Whitehall and telling me they're giving me 2 weeks to respond to them on this Scarborough development plan. Well, let me just put all of you on notice now. As Prime Minister, I will ensure that the people of Tobago get everything that the Parliament appropriate to the people of Tobago. And all my ministers have that instruction. If the people of Tobago have development issues, it will be developed in the context of the overall national development if it is outside of the parliamentary appropriation. And that covers the hotel at Rocky Point, which they wanted no part of in the last election, and which they believe that having paid a visit to the site, they know it's now acceptable, right? So you had to win an election and go down Rocky Point site as an office holder to know that if we get a 5-star hotel in Rocky Point, it's good for Tobago. Yeah. And if we get a marina in Tobago, especially now with the kind of bad weather that is now standard in climate change, and where insurance has gone through the roof, but in Trinidad and Tobago, especially here in Tobago, people who have their expensive yachts in the Caribbean want to keep it outside of the hurricane belt, and Tobago is saying, come hither, you don't want that, you want something in Kings Bay, because you want to be different to the PNM. What has happened so far with that? What is the development activity taking place in Tobago now? What is the maintenance activity? I'm inviting all of you, take a drive up Mason Hall Lecato Road where I live. And you will try and tell me at what point in time that road will be closed. I just got a 4-wheel drive vehicle because I intend to go home. Right? But you see, I follow what's going on in Tobago. I'm in Tobago very often, and I intend to spend more time in Tobago because I love Tobago. And I want you all to love what Tobago is. Don't wait until you go to another country or you come from another country, to say that life in Tobago is of a very high quality. Enjoy it, but stop allowing people who have strange agendas to set the narrative for you. I'm listening to these meetings that take place out in communities. And invariably, these meetings are indoctrination in hatred. A lot of lies, but you're asking people to hate other people because those other people are supposed to be against you. Against you in what way? The winning of an election or the loss of an election should not generate that kind of conversation. And it only generates that kind of conversation for people for whom the victory is something beyond the choosing of people to manage your affairs. But I've been there, done that. I stepped into the parliament as a PNM senator, opposition for the first time in the life of the PNM. Opposition 33-3. And the 33 thought they had come to reign and they come to stay. And by the next election, they lost 31 of the 33. You all remember that? As the French say, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Because look at what has been the motivating factor. Look at what has been the driving force of the conversation of those who have taken over Tobago 14-1. All the conversations about the PNM, to hate the PNM. But in the 11-1 days, I had friends in Tobago, friends I played cricket and football with, friends I used to line with, who were telling me, boy, no chance for the PNM in Tobago again, boy. You nothing with PNM, PNM can't come back. I stayed with my party. I stayed with our principles. I stayed with our programs. I stayed with our service. And the night when we won the 12 seats, many of them had voted for the PNM on that occasion. Because the PNM is not an overnight thing. We are about the present, we are about the future, and we lean very heavily on our past. Those who would rewrite history, let them do so with their time. You of the PNM spend your time strengthening our party and functioning as the premier political organization in the Caribbean, the People's National Movement. So it was in the assembly with some tweet and some video slandering me and a group of people. That was one part. The next side of it is they want self-government. No. And if they didn't get self-government, it's because they, ladies and gentlemen, self-government can only be had, different to what you have now, if the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago votes for something differently. You all were here when, for I think it was 2 years, those conversations were taking place. Tonight you heard one of your speakers talk about a meeting at Signal Hill on this issue when they had 1,000 people in Signal Hill in this consultative process. That process eventually was, the work of that consultation was encapsulated and codified by one or two of the best lawyers in the country, Tobagonians, Dan Martino and Gilbert Peterson. They worked on that situation to go from consultation in a hall to a document called a bill, which went to the assembly and was voted on unanimously in the assembly. This is what we're talking about in Tobago. And it came to the cabinet. By that time, I was prime minister. But you had done all the work here in Tobago. I followed it. I read all the transcripts. Can I tell you something? The chief secretary now, who has this turpentine in his behind for internal self-government, and he must get it now, otherwise he can burn down the whole country and he won the 2 seats and all that. You know, when that consultation was taking place, he went to the consultation representing the PDP. Is there anybody in this room who could tell me what he said there? All of you could tell me. Because I'm sure you all know he said nothing. Nothing. There's nothing on record from the man who is now Chief Secretary, who is so motivated about this self-government which we must have now because Robinson that and Davison that and PNM this. All that is just so much old talk. Because the process started with you here in Tobago. The same Orville London that he's denigrating now, Orville led that unique consultation, brought everybody as far as he was able to in. There are those who jump out when they see like something good going to happen, because as far as they're concerned, nothing good must ever happen, because bad things good for their politics. The same way sandals aren't good for you, because it will make the PNM look good. Doesn't matter the thousands of jobs we lost. It was there. The bill got out of Tobago, came from the Tobago House of Assembly to the office of Prime Minister. I didn't create that. But in the office that I work, where I took an oath of office to act without fear or favor, without malice or ill will, the cabinet took it. And we said it would not be a PNM adjustment to what you did in Tobago. We'll take it to the parliament without amendment. And the cabinet took your package into the parliament. We have 22 seats. At that time, we had 23 seats in the parliament. 23 seats cannot change the constitution to give you whatever you want. Interestingly enough, at the Joint Select Committee of the Parliament, the very people who are their political partners, who they fight against us with here in Tobago, they are the opposition in the Parliament. Tonight I want to ask all of Tobago, when you hear Farley talking about this fight over self-government and all these things that you want, what is the UNC position on those matters? What is it? And the reason why you have no answer to that is because the UNC want no part of what he's fighting for in Tobago. What they want in Tobago is to get 2 seats from Tobago, and those 2 seats will add to whatever they win, and they get the government to take over the country. That's what it's all about. You know, when we got that matter out of the Joint Select Committee onto the Parliament floor, one of the members of that Joint Select Committee was our venerable Maria Dillon Remy, independent senator. She was on the committee. So she hit Tobago too. The committee, in furtherance of your ambitions for further autonomy, because you have autonomy here, you have significant autonomy already. In furtherance of additional and broader autonomy, the Joint Select Committee, the PNM, and the independents said yes. And as fate would have it, an election was due in Tobago. And the consultation, the closing consultations took place in Tobago in about the same time as the election was due. So you had the opportunity in Tobago to treat it as an issue. And that issue was before the people of Tobago. Those 2 bills. And you heard tonight about a letter that suddenly appeared. Imagine we are going through this consultation process. You're there, you ain't saying nothing because maybe you don't even understand what's going on. Bills are crafted in Tobago by senior lawyers advancing your interests. Bills get to the cabinet. You have access to the Prime Minister. You have access to ministers. You have access to the 2 Tobago MPs. The Joint Select Committee is on the floor in the Parliament. Debate taking place. When we are in the committee stage, after the debate has ended, you produce a letter. To who? To legislators. The debate is over, eh? Because in the Parliament there is structure. When you are in committee, you can't be debating in committee. Committee is when you have the bill in front of you and you're going through it line by line to make sure that the law and what you want to do is what is in the law and so on and so on. But the actual debate ended. And then you get a letter from Chief Secretary Farley Augustine and Ho-Choi Charles. There used to be a TV program called The Odd Couple. Both of them signed this letter. But what struck me as odd about the letter is that Item number 1 on the letter, they wanted a 15-member elected assembly. Or you remember the assembly used to be 12 people? The letter that they wrote that came there into the parliament at the committee stage, item number 1 on that letter signed by Chief Secretary and Hochoi Charles was that one of the changes that they want, first change, was a 15-member elected assembly. That could have been done by the government with the government's majority. And what happened? We did it. You know what they said? The same people, that we do it for the PNM to try to win the election. That's what they were saying. Echoing the UNC stupid talk. As if you get 15 seats, you can't win 12, you can win 15. Right? But that was the first demand, and that one could have been done. Right? We did it, went to the polls, they won 14. Good? One of the other items in that letter was a public service issue. They wanted control of the public service in Tobago as an assembly item, where there's a Tobago Service Commission. Those of you who are public servants in this room or outside of this room would know that the Public Service Commission of Trinidad and Tobago allows any or every citizen opportunity across the nation in every post. Once you are a public servant, when it's time for promotion or opportunity for advancement, you are not confined to what exists in Tobago only. You would know many of you are family members, or many of you yourselves would have gone on promotion to Trinidad and risen to the highest level by moving up in the public service. How come that public service disconnection from the rest of the country did not come up in the conversation when there was the consultation taking place? How come that didn't get into the bill that went to the Prime Minister, that went to the Parliament? How come we are now required to deal with that only in a letter that comes from Hochoi Charles and Fali Augustine? Something as important as that, which says that if you are in the public service in Tobago, the perimeter of your advancement is in Tobago. And if an opening exists in Trinidad for a better job in the system that you are in, well, you have locked yourself off in Tobago. Is that what Tobago wants? As far as I'm aware, I have not seen that coming from Tobagonians. I see it coming from Fali and Hochoi Charles. The next thing is, they want 8% of the national budget. Well, you know my union friends, right? I have a lot of friends in labor. You ain't negotiating, the percentage is a high side and a low side, and you negotiate to come to a point of agreement. The bill that was before you here in Tobago was offering 6.8%. Now, if you are at 4.0 whatever, and you want 8, and you get 6.8, how many fingers you grabbing that with? But I want to ask the question again. Did their UNC friends agree to 8% of the national budget? Will the UNC, and I'm asking the UNC from here in Mason Hall in Tobago, will you agree to Tobago getting 8% of the national budget? So the UNC is silent and opposing the 6%. But you believe that they will agree to 8%. The next thing is, they want the ability to impose taxes. That is the letter. That was not ventilated in that way in the consultation, and therefore did not find agreement and did not find itself in the bills. You know how they ended the letter? The letter signed by those two gentlemen? They said, accept these demands. These are the words, eh? Accept these demands vigorously and scrupulously, failing which, reject the two bills. Those are the facts, fellow Tobagonians. Those are the facts, fellow citizens. If you don't agree for provision to impose taxes, to have civil service to cut off Tobagonians from the rest of the public service, and of course, to elect the chief secretary like a presidential election in America. Elect the chief secretary directly as chief secretary, not that the majority leader will be the chief secretary. No, no, no. They want an election where you're voting for the chief secretary. And that chief secretary, having been voted in, should only acknowledge one post, which is deputy chief secretary. All other executive members must be appointed from outside the elected people. That's what they want. That's in the letter. So the chief secretary and the 14 of them, as the case turned out to be, chief secretary must be elected as chief secretary. You run for the post of chief secretary, not for a district, and you are the leader, and therefore you run your team. No. And of course, except for the deputy chief secretary who would have been elected, everybody else, all the secretaries, will be appointed by the chief secretary at his will from people outside of the elected group. That fits into an argument about presidential executive, where you elect the president and the president appoints the cabinet. They offer that to us in the country. A handful of people in the country offer that as an improvement in our own system, where you elect a president, which they call an executive president, and he or she will appoint the cabinet from anybody, but not the people that you elected. The people that you elected will deal with road and drain in their constituency as messengers and postmen, but the authority to do things, to spend money, to make policy will be done by people you didn't elect. That is what is in the letter. And that is the letter that tells us in the parliament on that day in June when we were in committee, because I saw that letter while I was sitting in the committee. The debate was over. I took part in the debate. And when he came here to Tobago to campaign, asking Tobagonians to endorse it and asking them to ask their friends in Trinidad to support it, did you ever hear anybody in Tobago who was opposed to the PNM call on the UNC to support the bills? Because they themselves had said, dump the bills if you don't agree to those 3 or 4 things I just mentioned. And where did those things come from? They did not come from the consultation here in Tobago. It did not come from the people of Tobago. It came from the elected politicians who believe that they are wiser than you, the people. So you are a public servant in Tobago, and your career is in front of you. You're 25, you're 30, you're 40 years old. And you will see positions going in Trinidad and Tobago, and they might even be bringing in foreigners to fill it. Because a lot of Tobagonians fill a lot of positions on the national landscape in Trinidad and in Tobago. And if you people in Tobago are not careful, that is the bread that the devil is kneading, and you are going to eat it if you are not careful. So when you're talking about internal self-government as the do-or-die thing tonight or tomorrow, that is what they put before the parliament, separate and apart from the bills that came out of your consultation. And they know what the parliament's configuration is. Having called for it to be voted down and voting it down in Tobago, the bills are still on the parliament agenda, because I ensure that they remain there just in case a miracle occurs and they change their mind. But they wouldn't be there forever. They know the PNM has 22 seats. 22 seats cannot amend Section 75 of the Constitution. You need a 2/3 majority. And the way things are going, getting a two-thirds majority in our parliament is near impossible. Because now we have 23 seats, right? The UNC had 18. During that 5-year period, we spent a lot of time showing the country about the general misconduct and dishonesty of the UNC. Next election, they win one more seat. They get 19. And the election coming up in 2025, where we just told you that we had to go and fight all over the world to get back $970 million that they gave a contractor to go away with. And they expect to win the next election in 2025 because the 2 Tobago seat is theirs, because Farley promised them the 2 Tobago seats for internal self-government. That is good politics for them, but I want them to talk to you before it comes to that. The UNC must tell us if they're supporting the 8% or the 6%, or if they're supporting the direct election of a chief secretary, and he will appoint a cabinet in Tobago from unelected people. So people of Tobago, do not play foul eating corn soaked in rum because you could only get drunk and end up in the pot. The nonsense that is being spoken here in Tobago by people who don't know nothing, and they wouldn't behave themselves and learn, you know. They came in with absolutely no experience, totally disrespectful to everybody. But time, longer than twine. And as Al Green says in his melodious voice, ain't it funny how time just slips away? So if they want a discussion on internal self-government, let them talk to you about the facts that are in front of you. Ask them if those 2 signatures that they sent to the parliament are still valid. Ask them if they take it or leave it that they put in front of us, if that is still valid. And since the bills are to be rejected, what are they replacing it with? Is it that they will now go and restart another round of consultation? Is it that they will draft new bills? Will those bills have the support of the UNC or even the PNM for that matter? I'll tell you one thing, the one thing that is guaranteed for Tobago is support from the People's National Movement. We are the only political party that went to a convention and by resolution state our position with respect to Tobago and internal self-government. Have you ever seen that phrase anywhere in a UNC manifesto? Have you ever seen it anywhere in any other political party's manifesto? Because the PNM is in a class by itself, all alone and by itself. And that is where Tobago's future is anchored, with the People's National Movement. You know the story about the prodigal son? The prodigal son? Well, we have not yet slaughtered the fatted calf, but a day will come when he will come home. The people of Tobago will understand that they're being taken for fools and being fed a diet that they could do without. It could be that. You want to get involved in the politics, fine. You get office, fine. But when you get up to talk, what you're saying must make sense. And it must be in the interest of all the people of Tobago and of Trinidad and Tobago. Look at how much trouble as central government we are in trying to convince people and spending political capital on property tax. But as policy, we said to the people before the elections, the tax is collectible, the tax is not overbearing, the tax is required. These taxes that they want power to enact in Tobago, what are those taxes? Tell me. Well, I will warn you all, go read Eric Williams' book on the history of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and you will see there's a letter in there from a Tobagonian to Queen Victoria asking her for relief because they were collecting taxes on animals in Tobago. And they used to have to go and hide their animals in the bush to evade the taxes. Tax. I don't know if that is the tax, but I would love to know as Prime Minister, I would love to know what are the taxes that they want to levy in Tobago, that they want power to have taxes. And this is so important. It is so important that if we ain't get it, we're going to burn down the town. Yeah? And we'll poison every chalice, poison every well in Tobago. And we want it by Christmas. That's what's going on. But this matter of what you do with the autonomy you have now is very important to you, the people of Tobago. I tell you one thing, as Prime Minister, I am not going to interfere with how the THA spends the money that the Parliament gives them, where they have the authority to prioritize. They have the authority to do that. And if they use that authority to take their development program, to bring contractors in from Trinidad and give them opportunity while they bankrupt Tobago contractors, that is for you, the people of Tobago, to deal with. That's not a Prime Minister problem. And if they could find money to do all kinds of nonsense, but they can't find money to pave a road in Tobago, to save a life anywhere in Tobago, there are some places in Tobago with some roads with all this traffic. When the traffic was lower, those roads were relatively safe. Now that there's this volume of traffic in Tobago, there are some parts of our roads, one that are very dangerous with cliffs, and other parts where they're parking on curves, buses reversing and police reversing too, you know, because they're parking all over Tobago. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. They need no autonomy, additional autonomy to fix those things. They have enough autonomy to do what the Chief Secretary says there, which is to victimize people and to spend money willy-nilly on priorities that suit them. But they don't have autonomy to do more with less. I could tell you, as head of the central government, that has been the creed of our management of the country's affairs, doing more with less. And I hold that out, not only to the THA, but to the corporations in Trinidad and state enterprises in our country. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the Parliament where this matter resides. It takes votes in Parliament to change the Constitution. But careful who you give your vote to, because you don't know what they will do with it. In the meantime, I want to give you the assurance that I am getting involved in no bacchanal with anybody in Tobago. Not PNM, not PDP, no part of the alphabet. I come here for my health, for my leisure, for my entertainment, and to find my navel string. And for those who are obsessed with navel string, if they understand the significance of that, it's not the digging up of the navel string that matters, it's when it was buried. That you cannot change. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Pay attention to what is happening in Tobago. Use your head. You're big and you have sense. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
Brothers and sisters, you're big and you have sense. We want to thank the Prime Minister for gracing us with his presence this evening. I trust that we all had a wonderful, wonderful sit-in. Stay with your party. Stay with your principles. We are here, the People's National Movement, whenever the people are ready for us. Get home safe. God bless until we see again.
The preceding program was a paid political broadcast.
This is TTT. Live for local.
The following program is rated PG.